You will not believe what happens to the girl at the end. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can continue writing stories like this one. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
Rose's world had shattered like a dropped mirror. One moment, she was radiant in a white dress, ready to promise forever. The next, she was alone, the church doors swinging shut behind her, the echo of her fiancé's whispered excuses still ringing in her ears. He had run, vanished, left her standing there, a monument to broken vows. Days blurred into a sorrowful march westward. Rose found herself on a dusty train, clutching a worn carpetbag containing the few possessions she hadn't sold for passage. Her once pristine veil, now tattered and gray, was the only reminder of the life she'd imagined. The train rattled to a halt in a town that seemed as desolate as her heart. Redemption, it was called, though Rose saw little hope for such a thing. She stepped off the train, the dry wind whipping her veil around her face. The town was a scattering of weathered buildings baking under the relentless sun. A saloon, a general store, and in the distance, the clang of metal on metal, a blacksmith. Rose had nowhere else to go. Her stomach growled, a painful reminder of her empty purse. She wandered aimlessly, a ghost in her faded wedding dress, the weight of her abandonment pressing down on her with each step. The dust swirled around her ankles, mirroring the turmoil in her soul. She needed food. She needed shelter. Most of all, she needed a reason to keep going. The sun beat down on redemption like a vengeful god. Buildings sagged under its weight, their paint peeling like sunburned skin. The only shade came from the wide brims of hats worn by the few townsfolk who dared to venture out in the midday heat. A lone tumbleweed bounced down Main Street, a fitting symbol of the town's own rootless existence. Dust devils danced in the distance, swirling columns of red earth that seemed to mock Rose's fragile hope. The air tasted of sand and regret. Even the sky felt heavy, a vast, indifferent expanse of blue that offered no comfort. The silence was broken only by the creaking of a rusty weather vane atop the general store and the distant, rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer. The saloon, the last chance, looked particularly grim, its dark interior promising oblivion more than refreshment. A mangy dog lay panting in the doorway, its ribs showing through its matted fur. The general store, though slightly more inviting, offered little to Rose, who had barely enough money for a loaf of bread. Redemption was a town on its last legs, a place where dreams came to die. It was a harsh landscape mirroring the barrenness of Rose's own spirit. The very name seemed a cruel joke, considering her circumstances. Drawn by the steady rhythm of hammer against steel, Rose stumbled toward the blacksmith's shop. The building was a simple, sturdy structure, its walls blackened with soot. A plume of smoke rose lazily from the chimney, a testament to the fire burning within. As she approached, the sound of the hammer grew louder, each strike a powerful, resonant blow. She hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to intrude. The heat radiating from the forge was intense even from several feet away. Inside, a figure loomed, silhouetted against the fiery glow. He was massive, his shoulders broad, his arms thick with muscle. He wielded the hammer with ease, shaping a piece of red-hot metal with practiced precision. This was Colossus Jack. His real name was just Jack, but everyone called him Colossus because he was so big. He was a mountain of a man, but his movements were surprisingly graceful. He paused in his work, wiping sweat from his brow with a forearm as thick as a tree trunk. He turned, and Rose saw his face. It was craggy and weathered, but his eyes were kind, the color of warm honey. He looked at Rose with a gentle curiosity, his expression softening as he took in her disheveled appearance and tattered wedding veil. "Well now," he said, his voice a low rumble, "you look like you've seen better days. Are you lost, little sparrow?" Rose, startled by his booming voice, took a step back. I don't know," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Tears welled in her eyes, threatening to spill over. "I just arrived on the train." Jack's expression softened even further. He could see the pain etched on her face, the weariness in her posture. He set down his hammer, the clang echoing in the sudden silence. "Come now, little sparrow," he said, his voice gentler this time. "You look half-starved. I've got some stew simmering in the back. Why don't you come in and have some?" He gestured towards a small table tucked away in a corner of the forge, away from the heat of the fire. Rose hesitated. Could she trust him? After what had happened, trust felt like a dangerous thing. But the warmth in his eyes, the genuine concern in his voice, chipped away at her apprehension. Her stomach rumbled loudly, making the decision for her. I don't want to impose," she mumbled, but she took a tentative step forward. Jack smiled, a flash of white teeth in his weathered face. Nonsense, he boomed, but his tone was kind. A little company is always welcome. Besides, he added with a wink, my stew tastes better when it's shared. He led her to the table, pulling out a chair for her with surprising delicacy. A simple act of kindness that brought a fresh wave of tears to Rose's eyes. The stew was thick and hearty, filled with chunks of beef and potatoes. It smelled of herbs and warmth, a welcome contrast to the dust and despair that had filled Rose's nostrils for days. She ate slowly at first, savoring each bite, then with increasing urgency as her hunger took over. Jack watched her with a quiet satisfaction, a gentle smile playing on his lips. As she ate, Rose found herself relaxing, the tension in her shoulders easing. The warmth of the forge, the kindness of the giant blacksmith, and the simple act of nourishing her body began to thaw the icy grip of grief that had held her captive. Once she finished, Jack offered her a cup of water, which she gratefully accepted. Thank you, she said, her voice still a little shaky. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found you. Jack shrugged. Everyone needs a little help sometimes, he said. Especially when they've had a rough patch. He paused, then added hesitantly, if you don't mind me asking, what brings a young woman like you to redemption, wearing a wedding dress? Rose's face clouded over, the brief respite from her sorrow vanishing. The memory of the church, the empty altar, and the crushing humiliation flooded back. A fresh wave of tears threatened. It's a long story, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. A story she wasn't sure she was ready to tell. CK didn't press her. He simply nodded understandingly. Some stories are best left untold for now, he said gently. But if you ever need an ear, I'm here. Instead of pushing for details, he stirred the fire, sending a shower of sparks dancing into the air. The rhythmic crackle of the flames seemed to soothe Rose, offering a strange kind of comfort. She closed her eyes for a moment, and a fleeting image of her former life flashed through her mind. Flashback. Rose, radiant and full of hope, stood in her small but cozy cottage, sunlight streaming through the window. She was carefully tending to a patch of wildflowers she had planted, her fingers gently caressing the delicate petals. She dreamt of opening a flower shop, a place where she could share the beauty of nature with others. She imagined creating bouquets for weddings, filling homes with vibrant colors and sweet fragrances. Her fiancé, Thomas, had promised to help her build the shop, to make her dreams a reality. They would have a family, a garden filled with laughter, and a life blooming with love. End flashback. The memory was bittersweet, a painful reminder of what she had lost. The flower shop, the family, the love, all gone, like petals scattered in the wind. She opened her eyes, the warmth of the forge a stark contrast to the coldness in her heart. I used to dream of owning a flower shop, she said softly, the words barely audible above the crackling fire. But that seems like a lifetime ago. The blacksmith shop was a world of its own, a symphony of fire, metal, and muscle. The air thrummed with the heat of the forge, a roaring inferno contained within a brick hearth. The smell of coal smoke mingled with the sharp, metallic tang of iron, creating a unique and potent aroma. Tools hung from the walls, each one worn smooth with use, tongs of various sizes, hammers heavy and light, chisels, and files. An anvil, scarred and dented from countless blows, stood proudly in the center of the workspace, a testament to Jack's tireless labor. Water hissed as he plunged red-hot metal into a quenching tub, sending clouds of steam billowing into the air. The rhythmic clang of his hammer was the heartbeat of the shop, a steady pulse that resonated through the very foundations of the building. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the walls, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air like tiny stars. The floor was covered in a layer of coal dust and metal shavings, a gritty reminder of the constant work that took place within. It was a place of creation and destruction where raw materials were transformed into objects of beauty and utility. Despite the grime and the heat, there was a certain magic to the place, a sense of purpose and strength that emanated from Jack and his craft. The forge was his domain, and he ruled it with skill and passion. It was a place where something new could always be made. Despite Jack's kindness, a part of Rose remained guarded, a wall built around her heart after Thomas's betrayal. Every friendly gesture, every warm smile was met with a flicker of suspicion. She found herself constantly questioning his motives. Why was he being so nice to her? What did he want? It was a reflex now, a defense mechanism against further pain. She noticed the way he looked at her, not with lust or pity, but with genuine concern, and it unsettled her. She wasn't used to such sincerity. Thomas had always been charming, full of sweet words and empty promises. Jack was different. He was quiet, steady, and his actions spoke louder than any words. Rose kept her distance both physically and emotionally. She avoided eye contact, kept her answers short, and tried to make herself as invisible as possible. She didn't want to burden him with her problems, didn't want to become a responsibility. But more than that, she was afraid. Afraid of opening herself up, of trusting again, only to be hurt even more deeply. The thought of another heartbreak was almost unbearable. So she remained a wary sparrow, perched on the edge of Jack's world, ready to fly away at the first sign of danger. Her heart was a fragile thing, and she was determined to protect it, even if it meant living a life of loneliness. CK noticed Rose's hesitation, the way she flinched at sudden movements, the guarded look in her eyes. He understood. He'd seen enough hardship in his life to recognize the signs of a wounded spirit. He knew that trust couldn't be demanded, it had to be earned slowly and patiently. So he didn't push. He continued to offer her small acts of kindness, a warm smile, a cup of coffee in the morning, a comfortable place to sit and rest. He never pried into her past, never asked her questions she wasn't ready to answer. He simply created a safe space for her, a haven from the storm raging within her. He shared stories about his own life, about his struggles and his triumphs, about the quiet satisfaction he found in his work. He spoke of the importance of perseverance. She started to see him not as a threat, but as a friend, a protector, a beacon of light in the darkness. The seeds of trust, carefully planted and patiently nurtured, began to sprout. One day, Rose, feeling restless and wanting to repay Jack's kindness, tentatively offered to help in the forge. Jack, surprised but pleased, readily accepted. He started her with simple tasks, cleaning the tools, organizing the workspace, and keeping the fire stoked. At first, Rose was clumsy and awkward and used to the physical labor. She burned her fingers, smudged her clothes with soot, and struggled to lift the heavy bellows. But Jack was patient, guiding her with gentle instructions and a steady hand. He showed her how to hold the tongs properly, how to control the airflow to the fire, and how to swing the hammer with precision. Slowly, Rose began to learn. She discovered a hidden strength within herself, a resilience she never knew she possessed. The rhythmic clang of the hammer became less intimidating and more like a comforting rhythm. She found a strange satisfaction in working with her hands, in transforming raw materials into something useful and beautiful. The forge became a place of learning, not just for blacksmithing, but for life. Rose learned about the properties of metal, about the importance of patience, and about the power of perseverance. But most importantly, she learned about herself. She discovered that she was stronger than she thought, more capable than she believed, and that even after heartbreak, there was still hope for a new beginning. The shared work forged a new kind of bond between Rose and Jack, one built on mutual respect, admiration, and a growing sense of camaraderie. As Rose and Jack worked side by side in the forge, a different kind of heat began to simmer between them, a warmth that had nothing to do with the roaring fire. It started with stolen glances, brief moments of eye contact that lingered a little too long. Rose found herself admiring Jack's strength and skill, the way his muscles flexed as he swung the hammer, the focused intensity in his eyes as he shaped the metal. Jack, in turn, was captivated by Rose's quiet determination, her willingness to learn, and the way her face lit up when she finally mastered a new technique. He saw past the tattered wedding dress and the lingering sadness to the strong, resilient woman beneath. They began to talk more, sharing stories and dreams, laughing at each other's jokes. Rose found herself confiding in Jack about her fears and insecurities, something she hadn't done with Thomas. Jack listened patiently, offering words of encouragement and support. Sometimes their hands would brush as they reached for the same tool, sending a jolt of electricity through their bodies. These moments were fleeting, but they left a lasting impression, a silent acknowledgement of the growing attraction between them. The sparks that flew from the forge seemed to mirror the sparks of connection igniting in their hearts. It was a slow burn, a quiet blossoming, but it was undeniable. The heat of the forge was forging more than just metal, it was forging a bond of love and affection between two souls who had found solace and strength in each other's company. The burgeoning peace in Rose's life was shattered by the arrival of Jebediah Jeb Stone, a swaggering, self-proclaimed owner of half the town. Jeb was a man built like a barrel, with a face perpetually contorted in a sneer and eyes that glinted with malice. He saw himself as the undisputed king of redemption, and he didn't take kindly to anyone who challenged his authority. He'd noticed Rose, of course. A woman in a tattered wedding dress was hard to miss, and he took her presence as a personal affront. He saw her as a disruption to the established order, a reminder of a world beyond his control. He also resented the growing bond between her and Jack, a man he secretly envied for his strength and quiet dignity. Jeb began to harass Rose, making crude remarks about her appearance and her past. He'd corner her on the street, blocking her path with his bulk and spewing insults. He spread rumors about her, painting her as a gold digger and a woman of ill repute. One afternoon, as Rose was walking back from the general store, Jeb blocked her path. Well, he sneered, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey. If it isn't the runaway bride. Still clinging to that pathetic veil, I see. Why don't you just pack your bags and move on? This town doesn't need your kind. His words were like venom, poisoning the air around her. Rose stood frozen, fear gripping her heart. Jeb was a force to be reckoned with, and she knew she couldn't stand up to him alone. Just as Rose thought all hope was lost, a towering shadow fell over them. It was Jack, his face a mask of quiet fury. He'd heard Jeb's raised voice from across the street and had come to investigate. The sight of Jeb looming over Rose, his face contorted with malice, sent a surge of protective anger through him. "Jeb," Jack said, his voice low and dangerous. "I suggest you leave Rose alone." Jeb scoffed, puffing out his chest. "And what if I don't? Blacksmith? You gonna hit me with that little hammer of yours?" Jack's eyes narrowed. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make any threatening gestures. But there was something in his gaze, a cold, unwavering intensity that made Jeb take a step back. "I don't want any trouble, Jeb," Jack said, his voice still deceptively calm. "But I won't let you harass her. She's done nothing to you." "She's a jinx, Jack," Jeb spat, "bringing bad luck to this town." Jack took another step forward, closing the distance between them. He towered over Jeb, his sheer size and strength making him an intimidating figure. "That's enough, Jeb," he warned. "Apologize to Rose and leave her alone. Now." Jeb, despite his bravado, knew when he was outmatched. He mumbled a grudging apology, his eyes darting nervously between Jack and Rose. Then he turned and stomped away, muttering under his breath. Jack turned to Rose, his expression softening. "Are you all right, little sparrow?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Rose nodded, tears streaming down her face. She had never felt so grateful, so protected. In that moment, she knew that Jack was more than just a friend. He was her protector, her shield against the darkness. CK's protection was a turning point for Rose. It was as if, seeing him stand up for her, she found a new strength within herself. She was tired of being afraid, tired of being a victim. She realized that she couldn't let Jeb or anyone else control her life. The next day, Rose surprised Jack by arriving at the forge earlier than usual. She was wearing her work clothes, her face set with determination. "I want to learn how to defend myself," she said, her voice firm. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." Jack, though initially hesitant, saw the fire in her eyes and knew that he couldn't refuse. He began to teach her simple self-defense techniques, showing her how to use her weight and leverage to her advantage. He taught her how to stand her ground, how to project confidence, and how to use her voice to deter potential attackers. As Rose practiced, she felt a sense of empowerment growing within her. She was no longer the fragile, heartbroken woman who had arrived in redemption. She was becoming stronger, both physically and emotionally. The forge, once a place of fear and uncertainty, was now a place of transformation. She also started to let go of the past. She still thought of Thomas sometimes, but the memories were less painful now, less consuming. She realized that his betrayal didn't define her, that she was capable of love and happiness. She started to see a future for herself in redemption, a future filled with hope and possibility. The steel she was working with was helping her forge a new version of herself. One evening, after a long day of work in the forge, Rose and Jack sat outside, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues of orange and purple. The air was cool and still, a welcome respite from the heat of the day. A comfortable silence settled between them, a testament to the deepening connection they shared. Rose broke the silence. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice soft, "about the future." Jack turned to her, his eyes filled with gentle curiosity. "And what does the future hold, little sparrow?" Rose hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I still dream of opening a flower shop," she confessed. "But maybe not the way I imagined it before." She looked at Jack, her heart filled with a newfound hope. "Maybe I could combine it with something else. Something that would benefit the town." Jack smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Like what?" "I don't know," Rose said, her voice filled with excitement. "Maybe a general store and a flower shop? We could sell supplies to the townsfolk and brighten their days with flowers. Or maybe a blacksmith shop and a flower shop. We could forge beautiful things out of metal and decorate them with flowers." It sounds silly, I know. Jack chuckled, shaking his head. It doesn't sound silly at all, he said, his voice filled with admiration. It sounds wonderful. And what about you, Jack? Rose asked. What do you dream of? Jack gazed out at the horizon, his expression thoughtful. I've always been content with my work, he said. But maybe it would be nice to have someone to share it with. Someone to build a life with. He turned to Rose, his eyes filled with a love that needed no words. Someone like you. Rose's heart fluttered and she smiled. Maybe, she said softly, just maybe we could build something beautiful together. The conversation about the future stirred something within Rose. She realized that she couldn't fully embrace a new beginning until she had confronted her past. The next morning, she sat down at the small table in her room and took out a piece of paper and a pen. She hadn't written to Thomas since the day he left her at the altar. But now, she felt compelled to put her feelings into words. The words didn't come easily at first. She stared at the blank page, her mind flooded with a mixture of anger, sadness, and resentment. But slowly, as she began to write, the emotions began to flow. She wrote about the pain he had caused her, about the humiliation she had endured, and about the dreams that had been shattered. But she also wrote about her healing, about the strength she had found within herself, and about the new life she was building in redemption. She wrote about Jack, about his kindness and his support, and about the love that was blossoming between them. She didn't seek forgiveness and she didn't offer any. She simply wanted to express her truth, to release the burden of the past, and to move forward with a clear conscience. It was a difficult and emotional process, but when she finally finished writing, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had confronted her past and she had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. Now she was ready to fully embrace the future, whatever it may hold. She sealed the letter, addressed it, and walked down to the general store to mail it, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Rose's letter. Thomas. I write this not out of anger, nor out of any lingering hope for what could have been. I write this because I need to say these things and then be done with them. You left me at the altar, a spectacle of broken promises and shattered dreams. The pain you caused was immense, a darkness that threatened to consume me. But I am not consumed. I have found strength in the face of adversity, and I have built a new life for myself in a place called redemption. It is a hard place, but it has been kind to me. I have learned to work with my hands, to find beauty in the mundane, and to trust again. I have also found love. His name is Jack, and he is a good man. He is strong and kind, and he sees me for who I am, not for who I was supposed to be. I do not forgive you, Thomas, but I release you. I release you from the burden of my anger, my sadness, and my resentment. I release you so that I can move forward with a clear heart and a hopeful spirit. I wish you well, Thomas. May you find the happiness that you sought, even if it was not with me. Rose. End of letter. Reading the letter, even silently to herself, brought Rose a profound sense of closure. It was as if she had finally untangled the knots of her past, freeing herself to embrace the future with open arms. The past was no longer a chain holding her back, but a stepping stone that had led her to where she was today. She felt lighter, more at peace than she had felt in years. The finality of the letter gave her strength. She was ready. The townsfolk of Redemption, initially wary of Rose, had witnessed her transformation firsthand. They saw her kindness, her resilience, and her unwavering dedication to Jack. They saw how she had breathed new life into the blacksmith shop, how she had brought a sense of hope and optimism to their dusty little town. And they recognized the deep love and affection that had blossomed between her and Jack. So they decided to throw them a celebration. It wasn't a grand affair, but it was heartfelt and genuine. They decorated the town square with wild flowers, strung up lanterns, and prepared a potluck feast. Even Jebediah Stone, humbled by Jack's quiet strength and Rose's growing acceptance in the town, contributed a barrel of his best whiskey, though he stayed away, still a bit ashamed. As Rose and Jack walked into the town square, they were greeted with cheers and applause. The townsfolk showered them with gifts. Hand-knitted blankets, jars of homemade preserves, and tools for the blacksmith shop. The saloon owner, a gruff but kind-hearted man named Silas, even offered to host their wedding, free of charge. Rose and Jack were overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. It was a testament to the power of community, and a confirmation that they had truly found a home in redemption. As they danced under the stars, surrounded by the warmth and laughter of their new friends, they knew that they had made the right choice. Redemption had become more than just a town. It had become their family. The celebration was a symbol of their acceptance, their healing, and their shared future. The next morning, Rose awoke to the sound of hammering. It was a familiar sound, a comforting rhythm that had become the soundtrack to her new life. She dressed quickly and hurried down to the forge, eager to start the day. Jack was already hard at work, his brow furrowed in concentration. He didn't notice her at first, his focus entirely consumed by the task at hand. Rose watched him for a moment, admiring his skill and his dedication. Then she cleared her throat. Jack looked up, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Good morning, little sparrow," he said, his voice warm with affection. "I have something for you." He reached into a nearby bucket and pulled out a small object, carefully wrapped in a piece of cloth. He handed it to Rose, his eyes filled with anticipation. Rose unwrapped the cloth, revealing a delicate iron rose. It was exquisitely crafted, each petal perfectly formed, the stem adorned with tiny thorns. It was a work of art, a testament to Jack's skill and his love for her. "Oh, Jack," Rose whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's beautiful. I wanted to give you something that would symbolize our love," Jack said, his voice gentle. "Something strong and resilient, like steel, but also beautiful and delicate, like a flower. Something that would last forever." Rose ran her fingers over the smooth petals, her heart overflowing with love. It was the perfect gift, a tangible representation of their unique bond. She looked at Jack, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'll treasure it always." She reached up and kissed him, a kiss that was filled with gratitude, love, and the promise of a lifetime together. The iron rose, forged in the heart of the blacksmith shop, was a symbol of their enduring love, a love that was stronger than steel and as beautiful as a flower. With their love solidified and their pasts behind them, Rose and Jack looked forward to a brighter future together in redemption. They began to make plans for their combined business, sketching out ideas for the layout of the shop, brainstorming names, and gathering supplies. Rose, inspired by the town's name, decided to call their venture Redemption Blooms, a symbol of their own personal redemptions and the beauty they hoped to bring to the town. They secured a larger building on Main Street, one that could accommodate both the blacksmith shop and the flower shop. Jack worked tirelessly, strengthening the structure and forging custom-made displays for Rose's flowers. Rose, in turn, gathered seeds and cuttings, planning a vibrant garden that would attract customers and brighten the town. They faced challenges, of course. Money was tight, resources were scarce, and the work was demanding. But they faced these challenges together, supporting each other, encouraging each other, and never losing sight of their shared dream. The town of Redemption, once a symbol of despair and desolation, began to transform. The buildings were painted, the streets were cleaned, and the people smiled a little more often. Rose and Jack's love and dedication had breathed new life into the town, creating a sense of hope and optimism that had been absent for far too long. They looked forward to a future filled with hard work, shared laughter, and enduring love, knowing that together they could overcome any obstacle and create a beautiful life in their little rail town. The sound of the train whistle became less a symbol of loneliness and more a call to home. Years later, Redemption Blooms thrived, a testament to Rose and Jack's hard work and love. The blacksmith shop and flower shop were seamlessly integrated, a harmonious blend of strength and beauty. The scent of iron mingled with the sweet fragrance of roses, creating a unique and inviting atmosphere. The town of Redemption had blossomed as well. The buildings were brightly painted, the streets were bustling with activity, and the people were filled with hope. Rose and Jack had become pillars of the community, their love story an inspiration to all. One sunny afternoon, Rose and Jack stood outside Redemption Blooms, hand in hand. Rose, no longer wearing the tattered wedding veil but a bright floral dress, smiled contentedly as she watched children playing in the town square. Jack, his arm around her, gazed at her with a love that had only deepened with time. The sun warmed their faces and a gentle breeze rustled through the flowers in Rose's garden. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty they had created and the love they shared, they knew that they had found their happily ever after. The sound of Jack's hammer softly rang out from within the shop. The rhythmic clang, once a symbol of Rose's despair, was now a lullaby of hope, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. They were home.